Hi guys, welcome to another video. Today we're dealing with another chapter from the book Linear Freedom. Today specifically linear triplets from chapter 4. Again, this video series is to show you the main principles but also some applications for this material. And today we're looking at an application that I've been working on that uses Ted Reed's syncopation studies. The syncopation studies are not new, and interpretations of those accent studies are not new either, but I always thought it was a really fun way of learning and provided some really cool results. So essentially I'm kind of marrying two worlds here. I'm taking the concept from my book, the linear book, and applying it as an interpretation of one of the Ted Reed syncopation studies. So that you can follow along, I'm working with syncopation exercise number 1, which is now on page 38 of the new syncopation book, the blue and white one. And I'm working generally with the phrases from page 51 of my book, Linear Freedom. However, I'm also working with a lot of the combinations because the idea with the syncopation studies is to follow the accents rather than follow the exact combinations from my book. If you play triplets around the drum kit as a single stroke roll, you notice that my sticking alternates right, left, right, left, right, left, right, left, right, left, right, left. When working through the syncopation studies in accordance with today's video, we're playing exactly what I just played, so one triplet per beat, which means that for beats 1 and 3 of every bar, your right hand is leading the triplet. On beats 2 and 4, it's your left hand. So 1 and 3 is right, left, right. 2 and 4, coinciding with your left foot on the hi-hat, is left, right, left. That is the basic ingredient for today's lesson. And we're going to start by simply following the accents with the bass drum. So today I'm going to be working from just 4 bars of syncopation, page 38, and I'm going to work on the 4 bars that is the 3rd row up from the bottom. So it's the 3rd line up. I'll stick it on screen so you can see it. First of all, let's have a listen to that accent phrase played just on the bass drum in time. So I'm going to keep the hi-hat on beats 2 and 4 so you can keep track of where we are. And for now, let's just listen to what that accent pattern sounds like. So there are 4 bar accent patterns. Notice every accent is either on the beat or off the beat, and us essentially being in a swing feel, that means on the 1st note or the 3rd note of a triplet. So we're always either 1, 2, 3, 4, or 1, 2, 3, 4. That bass drum is always on the beat or off the beat in a swung sense. The rest of the time, we fill in single strokes as triplets. We fill in the gaps as single strokes in accordance with the concept presented from the linear drumming book. So if you don't have the linear drumming book, this might be a little bit awkward for you because, as I said, we're trying to maintain that single stroke sticking regardless of where that bass drum substitutes in. That might lead to some initially unintuitive sticking. As I said, for example, if there's a bass drum on beat 1, it's going to be kick, left, right. And if that's another bass drum on beat 2, it would then be kick, right, left. So this kind of keeping track of the sticking might be a little bit tricky at first. It certainly was for me. But again, think of the greater picture. We want to be able to phrase freely with any of the phrases and combinations from that chapter, from chapter 4. And this is really the only way to do it. So if you're working with my concept or the concepts that I've presented, it's worth kind of sticking it out. Okay, so let's apply this bass drum then. For now, I'm just going to start with the 1st bar, and I'm going to alternate between playing the accents in the single stroke roll with my hands and then substituting the accents for the bass drum, just so you can hear that it's the same accent pattern on both, because part of the point here is that you're leading with the accents, and because it's your bass drum that's playing the accents, you need to sort of train yourself to listen to that bass drum leading the melody. So it's going to sound like this, just the 1st bar of that line. I'll do the same now, but with the whole line. So third line from the bottom. You can start to hear there the value this has, because I'm using linear triplets there. I'm using all of the phrases and combinations from chapter 4 of the linear book without thinking about it. Again, if you've watched any of the previous videos in this series, you will know that the linear book is all about improvising in a linear fashion without needing to memorize anything. So by working through this accent study here, I'm automatically using the phrases and combinations without having to consciously choose or think or memorize any of them. So at the moment, I'm just playing between the snare drum and the bass drum, keeping my hi-hat on 2 and 4. A good way to start to ease into this is to trade with yourself, because we're working with a 4-bar phrase. We can trade 4s with ourselves. And what you can also do is pick one of your favorite syncopation interpretations and do that for the time 4 bars, and then use the same period of accents for the solo. So that way you're carrying across the same accent phrase between your time playing and your solo playing, and practicing simultaneously 2 different interpretations. So I'm going to use the interpretation where the bass drum plays the accents and the left hand fills in the triplets for the time feel, the time playing, and then I will do what I've just done where the bass drum plays the accents and the singles fill in the triplets for the solo, and it's going to sound like this. Okay, we've now got our basic, our hands are flowing, and it's important saying here that is difficult, and it's taken me a bit of time to work that through. So if that takes you time, that's okay. Give it the time it needs, because the point here is for those hands to be doing what they need to do without you needing to think about it. And I can tell you, the first time I started working with this, the hardest part by far was keeping track of which hand I was supposed to be coming in on, because if you get it wrong, you find yourself in the next bar leading with the left hand, and that throws your whole concept off. So it may take you a bit of time, and that's okay. Give it the time it needs, because as I said, we want those hands to be doing this automatically. We can now start to be a little bit more creative with this, okay? People that are familiar again with the Ted Reed syncopation interpretations will be familiar with distinguishing between short notes and longer notes. So for example, 8th notes we will call short notes, tied 8th notes, quarter notes, dotted quarter notes, and essentially anything longer than an 8th note we will call a long note. So we've got this distinction between short notes and long notes. And we can do a different interpretation depending on whether the accent we're playing is a short note or a long note. For example, here is that same accent line where all short note accents are played on the snare drum and all long note accents are played on the toms. So short notes on the snare, long notes on the toms, triplets filling in the rest. It sounds like this, that same accent study. So we're going to borrow that same interpretation now, except instead of playing the long notes on the toms, we're going to play the long notes on our bass drum in that linear fashion. So as before, the same way we practice it on the snare drum, when the bass drum plays, we do not play the hand. but we're now distinguishing between short notes, which are going to be played on the hand as an accent, and long notes, which are going to be played on the bass drum. This is where the coordination really starts to kick in, and this is where you really need to keep mental track of which sticking you're supposed to be using. Otherwise, as I've said, you'll find yourself cross-handed at the end. So that same third line from the bottom sounds like this. When you speed that up, it really starts to become a bit of a workout. But what you find is all the time and focus and attention you've been practicing that, you've not been thinking about the fact that you've also been practicing your linear triplets. Let's not forget here, we're actually working on linear triplets. But as always, we're trying to find a musical application for these. And by working through that bar, when I was practicing that bar, those 4 bars earlier, I was so focused on trying to make sure my sticking was correct and the accents were in the right place that I hadn't realized that for the past however many minutes or hours I'd been practicing the linear phrases from the chapter as well. And that's a really exciting prospect, that by focusing on one challenging exercise or one challenging kind of musical interpretation, you're practicing numerous things: your accent reading, your coordination, your linear playing, among many other things. Okay, let's move on from that, and we're going to start to focus down now. I'm just going to take 1 bar from this line. Let's take bar number 3. So the 3rd bar of that line, played just on the hands, it sounds like this. And remember, I got the exact sticking from the principles in the book. And what I'm going to do first of all is I'm going to move around my 4 toms, 3 toms and the snare. I'm going to move around the 4 drums once per beat. I'm going to move every beat. So beat 1, beat 2, beat 3, beat 4 on the floor tom. I'm still going to play the same accent pattern. I'm still going to play the same sticking. I'm using the linear interpretation, but now I'm just simply starting to orchestrate around the kit, and I'm moving once every beat. It's going to sound like this. Faster now. And from that point, what you do with it is up to you. But what I'm trying to get across here is that lick, if you like, let's call it a phrase. That phrase was created entirely from the accent pattern. So in terms of the actual sticking I'm playing, the phrases I'm using, yes, they are all from chapter 4, from page 51 onwards in the linear book. And I've, of course, practiced those. So mechanically, my ability is there. But in terms of the creative idea, all I've done is I've gone to Syncopation. I've looked for the accent pattern. The bass drum has played the accent pattern, and because of my practice from the linear book, my hands have done the rest, and I've got a ready-made lick, fill, solo, gospel chop, whatever you want to call it, and from there my orchestrations and applications are up to me. I can do what I want with them. But I just wanted to kind of show you how easy it is when you've nailed the concept from the linear book to take any accent pattern. You can use the syncopation stuff, but there are plenty out there. Kim Plainfield, the recently departed Kim Plainfield's Advanced Concepts, is a brilliant one as well. Not only for the accent studies, incidentally, but for various interpretations and putting them to good use. But I just wanted to show you how easy it is to get some creative inspiration that takes you away from having to memorize licks all the time, because I really got sick, as I've said before in the linear videos, I really got sick of just learning licks, stick for stick, note for note, drum for drum. I thought there must be something more to this creatively, rhythmically, and that's what this accent thing does. So if you've taken your chapter from Linear Freedom and you've really worked on the mechanical side, you can find an accent study of your choice in the time signature of your choice, in the note value of your choice, and you know that you can apply this linear interpretation to it, and you've got ready-made, not just linear fills or phrases, but you've got ready-made extended solos and pieces to work on. And again, without the need to memorize a single thing. So I hope this has given you some ideas. I hope there's some good stuff here, because there's plenty to keep me practicing for a while yet. And I will see you on the next one. And as always, if you've got any requests, either for the linear stuff or drumming videos in general, drop me a message and I'll see what I can do. Thanks a lot, and I'll see you on the next one.